IVM.
Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project.
We have as our guest today Apurva Damani, Group Director of Artha India Ventures. On this episode, we deep dive into Nawabs, Nudes and Noodles by Ambi Parameswaran.
In the second half, we also discuss 1984 by George Orwell, Emotional Intelligence, Authentic Leadership by HBR Press, The Speed of Time by Sharad Nalavade, and The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Our conversation with Apurva takes us through various topics, starting with a nostalgic view of the Indian advertising industry through the ages, moving on to music, and eventually even the science of space and space travel. So let's listen in.
Let me start with a boring statistic. Advertising expenditure as a percentage of GDP is still hovering around 0.4 to 0.5% in India. Just imagine if ad spends move up to even 0.8%, what can we expect to see around us?
Thank you, Apurva. That was a statistic from the book Nawabs, Nudes and Noodles by Ambi Parameswaran. Welcome to Paperback by the Open Library Project. I am your co-host Satyajit, otherwise known as Onion Knight in most food circles. I'm hosting the podcast with my co-founder at the Open Library Project, Racheta Sharma.
Hi guys, my name is Racheta. I'm an ex-banker who gave up my banking profession to follow my passion and run libraries across the world. The Open Library Project is a non-fiction book library service offered to businesses on a subscription basis. We're trying to move away from the run-of-the-mill library concept and setting up rotational and locational curated libraries at co-working spaces, corporates and business incubators. The idea is to create value, build a knowledge community and encourage a growth mindset amongst our members.
Today we have on the show with us Apurva Damani from Artha India Ventures. She manages a family fund across 60 startups across the country and internationally. Hi Apurva.
Hi Satyajit, hi Racheta. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
So let's get into it. The book we are discussing today is Nawabs, Nudes and Noodles by Ambi Parameswaran. Tell us what you liked about this book or what drew you to this book.
So in case the readers don't have enough background about this book, it is a beautiful story of how India has grown over the past 50 years, as told through the eyes of Ambi Parameswaran, who was actually the director of FCB Ulka, which is a large marketing agency. In case you don't know, FCB Ulka still does the ads for the Mumbai Traffic Police, and I think they do a fantastic job.
Oh yeah, so, I think we've all seen the billboards at
Babulnath, right?
Yes, yeah. And
really
they do a fantastic job, you know. And this book encapsulates 50 years of marketing in India and how it's evolved. Just reading the book took me down memory lane actually, originally, because this book talks about so many ads that you grew up with watching, you know, Star Plus on a Sunday morning, you know, with Mahabharat, and then you'd have the ad breaks. So some of these ads are luckily still available on YouTube in very poor quality, but they take you, you know, through this beautiful journey of how you grew up. And some of the ads, you know, that I reminisce are, for example, there's this ad for dalda ghee, and this child is sitting on a railway platform. Bahut rootha baitha
Jalebi.
Yeah.
I love that ad.
It's so sweet because he's sitting on this railway platform and Ramu Kaka, Shamu Kaka, whoever comes up to him and says, "Kya hua beta? Ghar nahi jana hai?" And he's like, "Main ghar pe sabse naraz hu," you know. And Ramu Kaka says, "Lekin maa ne tumhare liye ghar pe jalebi banaya." And his eyes light up, and you see him go, "Jalebi!"
Yeah, that's a great ad.
It's a beautiful ad.
It really touches, you know, your heart. The child's innocence, it's really adorable.
Yeah.
And every child at some point has decided to leave the house, I feel.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is what I like, that, you know, they target the emotions between say, a mother and a child, like in the Wix ad, or where they've targeted the ethos of a newly married couple in the Prestige ad, like jo बीवी से करे प्यार तो Prestige से कैसे करे इनकार. So it's very nice how they use these emotions to, bring out the essence of the ad. So what do you think? Like, which ad really, relates to you in those terms?
Well, in terms of advertisements, I don't know so much about relatability, but I'm actually drawn to wit and humor.
Right.
And one of my favorite ads actually is an ad by Naukri.com where there's a boss sitting at the table and he's trying to make a reservation for a hotel. And the receptionist on the other line says, "Sir, I'm sorry, I can't understand your name. What's your name?" And he's like, "Hari Saru." And it goes, so his, obviously his junior says, H for Hitler, A for arrogant, R for rascal, I for idiot. And then the other colleague goes, S for shameless. And it was so funny, and I still find it really funny because that's something that everybody will relate to. Everybody has had this one particular boss. This one Hari Sadhu in their life that they want to impale on a pitchfork.
If they're lucky, just one.
But I think those are the kind of witty advertisements that I really look forward to. So yeah.
That was a fantastic one. Another one that I remember actually is बारातियों का स्वागत पान पराग से किया जाए. Okay, so this ad is very funny. So when I started my onion company, EGK Foods, I sell crispy fried onions. So when we started without funds or anything, I used every opportunity to bootstrap. So someone had actually suggested to me, hey, you're doing all this stuff. You should just have sachets of fried onions, which you pull out at weddings or wherever and just hand it to people in reminiscence of the Pan Parag ad, which is this Baratiyo ka swagat, Pan Parag se kiya jaye. He takes it out from his pocket, right? There's some 8-foot guy, he removes it from his pocket and all. So that was one of my, I got a recall back to when I started EGK, when I read about the Pan Parag ad campaign. Really something it stands the test of time, right?
Yeah, and think about all the ads that you've grown up seeing. So you've seen the Complan girl and the Complan boy.
Yeah. That's right.
Right? You've seen Maggie, of course. Right?
Yeah.
Meri 2 minute wali Maggie. Meri midnight
wali Maggie.
Yeah. Meri hostel wali Maggie. You've seen the little girl.
Oh, yeah.
She shot to fame because she was dancing under a waterfall.
Oh, yeah.
So to tie this back to GDP, what really was interesting for me was seeing that, there were companies back then, FMCG companies, which obviously dominated your media eyeballs.
Right.
And look at how that's evolved over time. And now you're going to see a whole bunch of different companies that are going to come to TV. I hate the Trivago ads. I think
but they stand out, right? I mean,
they stand out for their absolute, blahness.
I think he has a very distinguished voice, is that's how I'll put it.
I just think it's a very planned out strategy to go with this person.
Of course.
Isn't he the CEO of the company?
No, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I guess. I'm not too sure. We'll check that out.
But if you think about Trivago, right, you think about how this ad does not inspire you to use Trivago.
Their services, yeah.
It just annoys you because it shows up at every single ad slot.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
But you also remember it, so I feel there must be something right about it that, everybody can relate to.
I'm sure everybody listening to us right now is Googling Trivago and figuring out their next hotel stay. But that's what advertising does for you. I really actually enjoyed the Vodafone campaign recently because, they were showing how you can access Vodafone network, sitting on an elephant in the middle of a jungle.
Yeah.
And I think that was obviously before Jio happened.
Right.
But if you look at Vodafone's entire advertising campaign, before that there was obviously the cutest pug possible.
Oh, yeah.
Who would follow you wherever you go. And then there was the entire Zuzu phase.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Vodafone's had a good series of campaigns over the years.
Yeah.
That's true.
The
And
Zuzu one came back, I think. There was a return of the Zuzu campaign, I think.
But they're so cute.
Yeah.
And they're very catchy.
Yeah. And they go about in their helium pitched voices, doing the cutest or the stupidest things.
Yeah.
And they're a reflection of the kind of idiocy that you want to do
On the phone.
Yeah.
With the phone, yeah.
So there are also a lot of ads with relevant social messages, like the Jago Ray ad, which was there by Tata Tea.
Even the milk ad, the dood.
Wonderful
dood.
Right.
Sorry, it's by the milk department, I think.
Yeah.
of
In fact,
India. I
I'm
don't
not
know.
aware, but does FCB Ulka also handle Amul? Because even they do a lot of
I
current
think
topics. And
Amul does an entire case study on, in fact, I think it's Dakuna. Rahul Dakuna.
Okay.
Dr. Korean, I think it's Korean.
No, Ashok Korean actually did Thumbs Up, Taste the Thunder.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so Rahul Dakuna, I think, is responsible for the Amul Girl. And the Amul Girl, you'll notice, is always very political.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she has a stance.
She has
and
a
it's
stance.
so cool because here you have this child who is also female, which I
Yeah.
think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And she's taking digs at whatever's going on in the country. And it's so fresh. It's so, as soon as you have, something's happened today, there'll be an ad up tonight. Or
The billboard will be up, right?
It's fantastic. And I think, I actually enjoy how on the top of the ad, right, they'll have the current topic, and at the bottom they'll always tie it back to bread,
Yeah.
butters,
Yeah.
and knives,
Yeah.
right? So that is actually what a meme should aspire to.
Correct.
I mean, I
correct.
think the Amul ad is actually the perfect example of what a meme should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It's beautiful. I just love their ads. They also provoke a lot of thoughts. Like you want to introspect after you've seen the ad, and you're like,
It's
very
current,
subtle
right? It's
and,
current and on point.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the really major differences. It's really quick, right? And I think just similar to the book itself, Nawabs, Nudes and Noodles, if you go through a chronology of all the Amul ads, as they were printed, you'll get a great idea. Just like while reading this book, I feel this book is a zeitgeist of our times, the Indian times, seen through a marketing perspective. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think it's a reflection also of how society has changed.
Has
because
evolved over time, yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, like the Colgate ads, they went from coal is bad for you to coal infused toothpaste. So you change according to the market, right?
I think you know what they're missing? They're missing a Safe Puri infused toothpaste. That would be awesome. Who wouldn't want to brush their teeth with Safe Puri?
Yeah, yeah, basically it should have your flavor, like your favorite flavor to start
nimbu
your
nikal
day
liya,
with.
namak nikal liya, koal bhi nikal liya. I think.
So yeah, that's what I really got to me while reading the book. It's like how society has changed so much, and I also feel marketing is a function of the times, right? You market to the masses as per their
It's market driven, basically.
market driven. I
Yeah.
think what ads come out, the content of the ads is pretty much driven by the markets and not the other way around. What do you think?
I actually think it's a result of who is on the top
Okay.
billboard of Nifty 50,
Okay.
and who has that kind of advertising spend.
Sure.
So it is actually, you are right, it is a reflection of what the market demands, because the market does have a demand for Trivago. Maybe that didn't exist 10 to 15 years ago.
Right.
But you do now want to look at and compare prices, and you'll do all the chindi, hacks possible to make sure that you've figured out, तुमने Jet Airways का website देख लिया, तुमने Make My Trip देख लिया, even 100 रुपए भी बच जाए तो
and it's become so much easier to save 100 rupees, as we moved along, these technologies have made so much accessible to us.
And now Trivago can do that for you for hotels. So now you'll go to Oyo Rooms' website, you'll go to the Taj website, you'll go to like say Chancery or all these smaller budget hotels website. Now you have it all aggregated in one place. And our parents didn't have that 10, 15 years ago. So it's amazing. It is a reflection of how the market has changed.
Right.
So what do you think people can take away from this book? Like, why would you recommend someone to read Nawabs, Nudes and Noodles?
The first point is definitely to acknowledge and to celebrate what you grew up with. I was, for the first half of the book, I was just smiling to myself because I've grown up seeing these ads, and it takes you back to a beautiful time of your childhood, right? Whose childhood isn't seen through rosy tinted glasses. And I'd say do it for that. And, secondly, if you're interested in understanding how FMCG companies operate and the kind of budgets that they're spending on ads, or if you want to understand how consumerism has evolved in India, this is a very good book to pick up because it shows you how consumerism has evolved, but through the lens of marketing and media and advertising.
It's also a very easy read. You can just...
I think the nostalgia part plays a huge part of it being an easy read, because while I was reading it, I was just remembering each campaign as we passed, right?
Yeah, I watched a few also.
Yeah, we watched a few on YouTube while researching the book. So that really pulled back memories, I think, while reading it. So great. That's about Nawabs, Nudes and Noodles by Ambi Parameswaran. We'll be back after this short break.
Hey, it's been another great week on IVM Podcast. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our Instagram page is actually pretty interesting. The stories we do are the team and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and, they're pretty kind of fun. Take a look at them. Let us know what you think. This week on Cyrus's guest is writer and journalist Namita Devidayal. She talks about how she got into journalism, her background in Indian classical music, and her upcoming book titled The Sixth String of Vilayat Khan. On The Scene and the Unseen, Amit Verma's guest is a cricket commentator and journalist whose voice most cricket fans can identify. I hope you guessed that it's Harsha Bhogle. He spoke to Amit about the evolution of Indian cricket, its rise, and the changes that he has witnessed over the years. Really, really great episode, and we're really excited to have Harsha on the network. Please definitely check it out. We also launched a brand new show called the Paperback Podcast, hosted by Racheta Sharma and Satyajit Roy. Every week, they'll talk to industry experts about 5 of their favorite non-fiction books. The first episode featuring Apurva Damani of Artha Ventures is out on the 5th. On the Rediscovery Podcast final episode of this season, Ambika and Hoshar talk to Pankaj Shah and Sumit Gambhir. They talk food, travel, and the secret ingredients to a decade of managing Indian restaurants. Pankaj and Sumit were also participants in our other show, The Kolaba Cartel, so it'd definitely be a fun conversation and definitely check them out. And with that, let's move on with the shows.
Welcome back, guys. We still have with us Apurva from Artha India Ventures. Apurva, like we were discussing before the break, that ad agencies use a lot of emotions to, drive their ads. So I wanted to actually get into another book that you wanted to talk about, which was Emotional Intelligence and Authentic Leadership by the HBR Press. So very interestingly, emotional intelligence, for everybody who doesn't know, was invented in 1990 by John Mayer and Peter Salovey. And they speak about how emotions and how our personal emotions can drive a lot of things at work, and how you can regulate your emotions to get the benefit from your employees. So what about this book really stood out for you?
I think it reinforced a couple of ideas that I had already planned with regards to building a team, making sure the team sticks together. So I have a background in corporate training as well. So I understand a little bit, and I hope to understand over the years, what it takes to keep a team together. Definitely take them out for Friday lunches. They love that. And it's so funny how you just step out of the office and eat a meal together, and that opens up a completely different conversation. This book specifically said you should make it a point to learn more about your colleagues' life stories. So what do they want to do outside of work? So, for example, I scuba dive.
Okay, wow.
And I play the keyboard.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to actually give the grade 5, keyboard
Trinity
exam. Yeah, in Jan.
Grade
That's
5.
amazing.
After
Wow.
10 years, after a 10-year break, and we have somebody in our office who plays soccer. It's a small league at the Mumbai level, but they're really passionate about that. We have another person on the team who's passionate about sailing. So it's so interesting, once you step out of the office and you start discussing your passions over food. And I think it brings a different dynamic to the team when you say, hey, I need to actually leave early because I need to make sure that I make it to my keyboard tuitions because I need to give this exam in Jan.
Yeah.
I think it also sort of shows that you have an interest in your employee and they're not a machine to you. You actually relate to them and their life. So, yeah, I guess that's a nice thing. We should try it, Satya.
Definitely, guys. Go out for lunch or beers on Fridays or Saturdays if you're working 6 days a week like we do.
Yeah,
Yes.
we do work 6 days a week.
Startups.
7 days actually. So, yeah. Speaking about emotional intelligence, I think empathy plays a big part in the whole emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
In the whole emotional intelligence piece. So I had an interesting thought actually about empathy. I'd love to share that with you. So I was reading this book by Nicholas Nassim Taleb, Anti-Fragile, and he speaks about scholastic resonance in terms. This is in the context of music. So just stay with me here. It's a little. So in the context of music, scholastic resonance is what you add random sounds into your music so that the music is heard better.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so like if you want certain notes or if you want the harmonies to be heard better, you add random everyday sounds like traffic or water, something like that, and it makes you listen to the music better. So I had a very interesting thought related to empathy with that. So empathy is a very fascinating thing for me because I wasn't aware that something like empathy existed until maybe 10 years ago. Which is, I was already an adult by then and I should have known. And it's never taught, right? It was never taught earlier in school. And so the thought I had was, there's a German word called Schadenfreude, which means you feel good when someone else does badly. Right? So
so sadistic.
But it's common across humans. I feel that's a base emotion, something that we can evolve out of. So to get to empathy, I think you need to break through your Schadenfreude. So that was a little thought that I had.
It's really interesting that you talk about adding traffic noise and, background noises.
Nassim Taleb talks about it in Anti-Fragile.
No, it's true. So whenever in our office, you'll often hear me playing music. It could be ranging from Chikni Chameli to white noise.
Right.
Ranging to the Lord of the Rings soundtrack on repeat. Because
Repeat.
on repeat.
On repeat.
Oh my God, I can tell you exactly when they climb up Mount Doom.
Oh, wow.
I can tell you exactly when they're running through, when the trio, Aragorn, Gimli, and the elves,
Legolas.
I'm forgetting Legolas.
Yeah.
They run through the landscape to catch Merry and Pippin. I mean, that's what music does for me. Music brings up an emotion or a very strong memory, and I do these things, of course, to help myself focus. And but also whenever people come approach me, I always talk to them over the music, but I find that I'm a lot more focused when there's music playing in the background.
Okay, wow, that's a very interesting thought right there. So
It obviously won't work in a co-working space.
In a co-working space.
Yeah. You can have your headphones on.
Okay, great. So we're going to move from this book. We're going to move to another book, which is The Speed of Time by Sharad Nalawade.
This was really interesting because I studied political science, economics, Spanish. In school I studied psychology and math. The last time I touched physics as a subject was in 10th grade to pass the goddamn ICSE.
I had an option to leave it in the 9th standard, so I was like, yay!
Unfortunately, I had to stick it out till the 10th. Mm-hmm. And after that, I never touched a science textbook ever again.
Okay.
And, 10-15 years later, here you are picking up a book that explains quantum physics of all things in a language that is explicable to a 5-year-old, or in my case, somebody who at least had some basic physics understanding. And you're taught about how Einstein's theories completely, go against what Newtonian physics propagated. That's, that in itself, I didn't even realize there was a debate going on, in physics. And this is actually a huge debate, apparently. And then it goes on to quantum physics. It talks about how at the electron level, if you charge an electron, it's only going to jump from one orbit to another orbit, but remain there because there's a limit applied to the amount of jumping it can do, and that goes back to Planck's constant, and there's all these things about quantum physics, that
you don't sound like someone who gave up physics and just wanted to point that out.
I think the book has been really successful in communicating what they want to.
Well, thankfully, it explained it in a language that somebody understood, and this is obviously meant for readers who just don't understand physics. And you're learning about how two electrons, or twin electrons, I think they're called, that exist in different parts of the universe actually have a telepathic connection with each other. And you're wondering to yourself, okay, what implication does this have at the quantum level? Does that mean that telepathy actually exists? Because if there's an electron within my mind, and if that's joined to an electron somewhere outside, is there some sort of telepathic communication going on? And
that's probably the power of Secret, the book that they talk about, that you keep thinking about it and the universe makes it happen for you. Maybe the electrons are like mingling. I don't know.
That's so romantic. But what this allowed me to do was actually develop something even more incredible. I've actually started reading a lot about space.
Okay.
Ever since I've read this book, I've delved into how the Big Bang started, where the universe is now, where we're going from now. And it's amazing how the Earth is, the planet with the right temperature, the right gaseous mixture, the right amount of water, the right geology, the right chemical compositions, which makes us, you have to really take a step back and think about it. We're out there in this big universe, and we're hanging, in this big black fabric.
Right.
And
in this void.
And we're one of the only planets, hopefully, that supports life. And everything on Earth looks a certain way because the ecology framed the way organisms would evolve. Yep. Right. Now, if you replicate conditions like this on another planet, the ecology is going to completely change the way organisms evolve there. So maybe they may not grow as tall, or maybe they'll grow taller, or maybe they'll grow with different chemical compositions within their bodies, and even their body structures could be completely different.
Yeah. So maybe they don't evolve out of apes, evolve out of lizards.
Yeah.
A reptilian theory. That
would be scary.
Right? Yeah, it was scary to us, right? Because
but can you imagine now? now you have a cold-blooded
Exactly.
animal that's evolving and is going to, replicate something similar to what we've created in the space of 2,000 years. They create that on another planet. But at the same time, what blows my mind is that planet is going to be working on a completely different time system to ours.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
And the way you think about time there, the way you think about time here, and the speed at which things are happening are different, because again, this goes back to quantum physics, so it blows my mind.
Can you suggest some more books in this genre to our listeners?
I can actually share the Medium blog that I've been reading about space. So
I actually selected the space travel and what does it say? Space and something on Medium. Very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's where I'm learning about these things from, because again, it's explained in a language that I can actually understand.
So it's so interesting, right? Someone who had probably given up physics back in the day has refound an interest in space physics. I personally find space very fascinating, and I've been trying to keep up, obviously, with what's happening all over the world. And I feel these times are so exciting.
It makes
right?
you think about what Elon Musk is probably thinking.
Yeah.
Why is he looking at space? But if you think about, now if you go back and understand all these basic concepts, you start thinking about what we can actually achieve if we're the colonizer in interspace travel and what we can achieve.
Yes. So another book we wanted to speak about is 1984 by George Orwell. I think most of us who've read the book, I read it at least 10 years back, 15 years back. I think we'll all agree we are in Orwellian times. What do you think, Apurva?
I think, and it is true. If you look at your computer, and this existed even back in the MS-DOS days, right? Like if you had a webcam, the webcam, could look back at you.
Yeah.
Your phone screens and your phone cameras can be tapped, your TVs can be tapped, so much can be tapped. So Big Brother is always going to watch you. Mm-hmm. And there's so much now that we're putting out, we don't even realize the kind of content we're putting out because we have Facebook. And you use a Facebook login for every single app that you're going to use. Yeah. Whether it's, to log in to book tickets for, a show or for traveling, or, you're looking at just logging into, TVF's app, for example. Yep. Anything you do, you now require a Facebook or a Gmail login. Yep. Right. And that's leaving a huge footprint. People can trace you back and they can track exactly what you're doing just using that one login. And data now is so easy to leak and so easy to misuse.
That's true. And I actually have a very different perspective on this. So I feel that you can probably use all these, social media handles to your advantage, because you know exactly what you want, and you know that these mediums push all your information out there, so you can sort of target exactly what you want them to push out to people. So in a way, I feel for businesses it works really well. If you know exactly the content to push, you can actually use this to your advantage, and so rather than the other.
Rachita,
I keep telling my phone, fundraising, so that they can keep sending me stuff related.
So I definitely agree with you where the businesses are benefiting from all the data. But we as individuals, the cost of using all this technology is the data, is the access to all our movements is what we are paying with a Facebook login or a Gmail login, right?
You know how the US elections were influenced? So, Philadelphia, which is a has a high concentration of African Americans, did not have a huge turnout of African Americans because they were targeted with ads on Facebook to actually not turn out. There was a disincentive, right, to turn out and vote. So imagine if 100,000 African Americans from Philadelphia, which is a swing state, had voted, or Pennsylvania actually, Philadelphia is the city. So if 100,000 people from Pennsylvania had voted, Hillary had anyway won the popular vote.
The popular vote. She would have won
but
the
she could have won,
college also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of
Impact.
data. Yeah,
Targeted advertising. So this comes back to what we were talking about in the first book, right? If you do really targeted advertising, which is possible now because we are able to analyze data at such a large scale. A company like Facebook or a company like Google can... I think it can predict before you can predict what you want. Because
you're actually right, and I'll tell you why. And this is not me saying this. This is a TEDx speaker saying that Facebook, based on your usage patterns and the way you're interacting with certain, items on Facebook, can predict whether you are developing schizophrenia or some sort of social disorder. And then they can target you that way. They can predict whether you're going to have a tendency to gamble and then push you into gambling through soft subliminal
messaging, so if people don't know, subliminal messaging is subliminal advertising is the advertising that's done to you which your eyes can't detect. It's so fast that your eyes can't, you don't recognize you're being advertised to, but your brain processes it because your brain processes much faster than the eye, something like that. I think.
So subconsciously, your brain is shifting, and people are pushing you into a certain type of behavior just based on the kind of advertising that they're doing.
This is there in, just a quick common example, is there in Fight Club, where he's cutting up the scenes from the reel and inserting images into the movie screen, so it's a part of the movie. And to come back to 1984 itself, there's a very poignant scene in the book where Winston, after almost a year or more of torture, is stripped down to a skeleton. His skin has turned grey, his teeth have fallen, his hair has come out, he's down to literally his bare bones. And O'Brien takes him to a mirror, strips him of his clothes, and he looks at himself in the mirror and he looks at what he was and what he's become. And that scene has remained seared in my memory because it shows, what a state is capable of doing to you.
Thanks, Apurva. That's great insight. Before we wind up, I'd like to ask you one last question. Is what got you into reading? So there's a habit that people inculcate over time. What was it for you that, piqued your interest into reading?
I was that nerdy little kid.
Oh, I love those.
Read The Lord of the Rings cover to cover, 1008 pages of 8-size font in the 6th grade. I would have finished it in 3 days, but my mother locked up my books, so it took me a month to finish it, and I still regret that. But I was the type of child who would, I would be reading a book, the doorbell would ring, I'd go open the door with the book in my hand. I wouldn't even see who was at the door. And I'd yell back to my mom saying, Mummy, aake dekho, koi darwaze pe hai. And I'd go back to, my little corner under the table or under the bunk bed and just curl up and read. And that's why I had -4.5 eye power in both my eyes because I just, kept reading, and I had these thick glasses as a child.
Okay. Do you reread these books often? The ones that, that really impacted you?
The one I've reread at least 2 or 3 times now is actually, as cheesy as this sounds, it's Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, that's
because
a great book.
I find that it's not just applicable for work. It's applicable at home, when you travel, whatever you do. So right now, the one tip that I've picked up from the book that I'm working on for this entire month is make it a point to remember people's names, because no matter what language you speak someone's name in, it's the sound that is the sweetest to their ears.
Okay.
There's a really nice tip I can give you, because I suffered from the same problem. So they say that, whenever somebody introduces themselves to you, you should repeat their name, because that's how your brain sort of registers it. So you may think that you will not remember the name later, but if you've repeated it, like thanks Apurva, then you probably remember the person later.
Thank you. I will keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So Apurva, we'd love to end with a quote from any of your favorite authors.
Sure. So I recently finished reading Fahrenheit 451.
Okay.
And I'm paraphrasing a little bit of what Ray Bradbury said, but the quote goes, "There was a damn silly bird called a phoenix. Every time he burnt himself up, he sprang out of the ashes. He got himself born all over again. And it looks like we're doing the same thing over and over. But we've got one damn thing the phoenix never had. We know the damn silly thing we just did."
Beautiful.
Thank you, Apurva, for being with us today and sharing your insights on these books. We look forward to having you on our show again. A big thank you to all our listeners. You can follow the Open Library Project on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook for latest updates on our events, and stay tuned for the Paperback podcast on Indus Vox Media. You can follow IVM Podcast on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at IVM Podcasts. Thank you. Happy reading.
Thank you, Apurva.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.
Did you know that Parsis in Mumbai, instead of being left at the Tower of Silence after they die, are now cremated? And why? Because a cow fell sick in the early 1990s. Did you know that the smog in Delhi is caused by something that farmers in Punjab do, and that there's no way to stop them? Did you know that there wasn't one gas tragedy in Bhopal, but three? One of them was seen, but two were unseen. Did you know that many well-intentioned government policies hurt the people they're supposed to help? Why was demonetization a bad idea? How should GST have been implemented? Why are all our politicians so corrupt when not all of them are bad people? I'm Amit Verma, and in my weekly podcast, The Seen and the Unseen, I take a shot at answering all these questions and many more. I aim to go beyond the seen and show you the unseen effects of public policy and private action. I speak to experts on economics, political philosophy, cognitive neuroscience, and constitutional law so that their insights can blow not only my mind, but also yours. The Seen and the Unseen releases every Monday. So do check out the archives and follow the show at seenunseen.in. You can also subscribe to The Seen and the Unseen on whatever podcast app you happen to prefer.